Addiction is not born from pleasure. It's born from imbalance. What if every woman who ever left you was only reacting to a pattern you never saw? Stop. Look more carefully. Every addiction begins as an imbalance. A hidden tilt in the emotional field. It doesn't scream. It hums softly, steadily, like an undercurrent beneath calm water. You think love is born when two hearts meet. But real attraction is not mutual. It is magnetic. One side pulls, the other moves. That's the hidden pattern beneath every emotional bond. She never fell for you because of your kindness. She fell into you because of your gravity. And when that gravity disappeared, so did she. You believed that if you gave more, she would stay. If you loved harder, she would see. If you proved your loyalty, she would value it. But giving more to a system already out of balance doesn't fix it. It makes the tilt worse. She didn't leave because you weren't enough. She left because your energy became flat. No contrast, no tension, no rhythm. Every heartbeat needs a pause. Every melody needs silence. Every desire needs distance. Addiction lives in the spaces between presence and absence, between touch and withdrawal, between certainty and mystery. The moment she can predict you, you stop existing in her nervous system. The loop breaks. And when the loop breaks, the craving dies. Because craving is not about love. It's about uncertainty. It's the body's way of chasing balance through imbalance. Dopamine doesn't come from having. It comes from almost having. From reaching, missing, reaching again. And you kept removing the reach. You gave before she reached. You answered before she wondered. You arrived before she missed you. So the current reversed. She became the voltage. You became the circuit. She set the rhythm. You danced to it. And you called it love. But love without polarity becomes peace. And peace without tension becomes boredom. Boredom is the death of desire. Every man she ever left was peaceful, predictable, safe. Every man she still thinks about carried chaos. Not loud chaos, silent chaos. A rhythm she could never quite map. Addiction is the echo of imbalance. One side vibrates stronger. The other side starts to tremble in response. Soon she can't tell if the tremble is fear or desire. And that confusion, that trembling, becomes the thread she can't stop touching. She says she wants love, but her biology wants contrast, safety and danger, closeness and distance, order and tension. You thought love was peace, but peace doesn't hold attention. Only gravity does. And gravity is born when one side refuses to orbit. You tried to orbit her mood, her tone, her silence. Every time she pulled away, you chased. Every time she tested, you explained. Every time she withdrew, you begged. But chasing reverses gravity. Begging destroys tension. And explanation kills mystery. A woman cannot be addicted to what she fully understands. Her curiosity must ache. Her mind must wander in circles around what you don't reveal. Her body must learn the rhythm of your distance. That is how the bond forms, through rhythm, not words. You believed love is about alignment. It's not. It's about asymmetry managed by awareness. The one who holds awareness shapes the field. You were reacting. She was leading. And you wondered why you felt invisible. Invisibility is not punishment. It's physics. Light bends toward mass. If your center has no mass, no boundary, no silence, no absence, then light passes through you. You become transparent. She can't see what doesn't resist. Presence is resistance. Not aggression, not control, just the quiet refusal to dissolve. That refusal creates weight. And weight is what the feminine orbits. Every man who becomes irreplaceable carries this quiet weight. He speaks less, moves slower, waits longer, not because he is playing a game, but because he understands rhythm. He knows the pause carries more voltage than the touch. He knows distance feeds desire. He knows unpredictability is not chaos. It's art. Addiction begins with the absence that has meaning. Not every absence matters. Only the kind that feels intentional. When you withdraw without resentment, without demand, her mind begins to burn in silence. She tries to fill the blanks. She imagines you. She rewrites the memory. And in doing so, she deepens the bond herself. Every craving is self-created. Every obsession is self-fed. All you did was hold the silence long enough for her to hear her own hunger. That's the pattern. That's the architecture beneath every emotional addiction. It's not in your words, your gifts, your promises. It's in your rhythm, the timing of your absence, the gravity of your stillness. You want to know why you were forgotten? Because you were constant. Because you were easy to reach. Because you were a sound with no echo. Men with gravity do not echo. They resonate. Their silence lingers. Their presence bends the air. They move like inevitability. If you ever felt invisible, understand this. You were not unseen because you lacked love. You were unseen because your energy carried no cost. What is free is rarely remembered. What is rare shapes memory. Memory shapes craving. And craving is the seed of addiction. In this world, emotion obeys power. And power is never loud. It is quiet, slow, predictable at the core, unpredictable at the edges. She doesn't crave chaos. She craves the man who stands still in it. The man who doesn't chase her storm, but lets her storm orbit his calm. You don't fix the imbalance by doing more. You fix it by becoming more. More presence, more silence, more weight. Addiction is not born from pleasure. It's born from imbalance. And until you understand the laws of imbalance, you will keep losing women to men who don't even try because they understand rhythm. This is where it begins. The hidden pattern beneath every addiction. You will see how it rises, how it consumes, and how it can be reversed. In the end, you'll learn not to chase her attention, but to become the axis her emotions can't escape. Breathe. Listen, because everything you thought was love was only gravity waiting for you to return to the center. Part 1: The Illusion of Mutual Desire. Every man wants to believe in mutual desire. That when she looks into your eyes, something equal is exchanged. That love is two souls moving toward each other in balance. But that belief is the first illusion. No bond begins in symmetry. Every bond begins with a pull. A difference in charge, a shift in gravity. One body moves first. One field absorbs the other. Attraction is never fair. It is never mutual. It is always magnetic. You think she fell for you because she wanted you. But desire is not about wanting a person. It is about what that person awakens. She doesn't crave you. She craves the chemical storm that your presence creates inside her. Her mind can praise your kindness, your humor, your loyalty. But her body remembers something else. The slight unpredictability in your tone, the delay between her text and your reply, the way your attention felt scarce enough to earn. That is what her nervous system calls value. She can't name it. She will tell herself stories that you are different, deep, safe yet dangerous. But what she's really describing is the feeling of imbalance. The same imbalance that keeps a flame alive. When she first met you, she felt that voltage. It wasn't love. It was movement. She stepped into your field, felt the air shift, and called it connection. But connection is a story the mind tells to make sense of gravity. Gravity doesn't ask permission. It simply pulls. Every addiction begins with this illusion of mutual desire. Two people think they're moving toward each other. In truth, one is standing still and the other is orbiting. You believe if you just give enough, love will balance itself. But giving does not balance anything. It amplifies the tilt. The more you give, the more she receives without resistance. And the more she receives, the less she feels because feeling requires friction. And friction dies when everything is easy. That is why so many men lose their axis once they fall in love. They start chasing her comfort instead of commanding the rhythm. They mistake her peace for her loyalty. They think if she's calm, she'll stay. But no addiction starts from peace. It begins where tension meets desire. Look at how she breathes when you are near but not touching. Her breath changes. Her pulse rises. That's not affection. That's chemical imbalance. Dopamine, cortisol, adrenaline. The mind confuses it with love, but the body knows. It's the edge of chaos that creates attachment. When you soothe that edge too soon, you kill the very thing that made her crave you. You turn voltage into comfort. And comfort is not addictive. She doesn't need to feel safe with you. She needs to feel alive. Alive means slightly unstable. Alive means her emotions have something to orbit around. You became invisible not because she stopped caring, but because you stopped creating gravity. In the beginning, you had it without trying. You were mysterious because you didn't yet care to explain yourself. You were unpredictable because you hadn't yet submitted to her rhythm. You didn't respond right away because your life still had weight. That weight was your magnetism. Then she began to matter. You started calculating. You started performing. You started adjusting to her moods instead of anchoring them. And slowly, without noticing, you gave her your axis. You stopped being the sun. You became the planet and she began to drift. Men confuse affection with control. They think giving love will inspire loyalty, but affection without scarcity is forgettable and control without presence is empty. You don't keep her by holding tighter. You keep her by becoming heavier emotionally, spiritually, energetically. Heavier doesn't mean darker. It means still. A still man creates motion in others. A moving man creates noise. She doesn't want to lead. She only leads when you abandon your axis. And she doesn't even realize it. Her instincts simply respond to the vacuum left by your uncertainty. In that vacuum, her desire decays because there's nothing left to orbit. No gravity, no asymmetry, only peace. And peace kills craving. Every woman's emotions oscillate. Rise, fall, retreat, return. They move like tides. When a man's energy shifts with hers, the ocean becomes flat. But when he holds his shoreline, solid, constant, she crashes, retreats, and returns again and again. Not because she chooses to, because nature commands it. That is the hidden law of attraction. The feminine expands. The masculine contains. Containment is not control. It's direction. It's what gives her chaos a home. And the home is what she mistakes for love. When you stop being the container, she feels lost. Not in you, but in herself. And when she can no longer feel herself around you, she leaves. Not out of anger, out of instinct. Because her body only knows one truth. It craves the mirror of its own energy. A field strong enough to hold it, but distant enough to never collapse into it. You believed her words. I just want someone who loves me for who I am. But her biology says something else. I want someone whose presence reorganizes who I am. That's why she dreams about men who don't explain themselves. Why she remembers the one who walked away. Why she returns to the man she claims she shouldn't. She isn't chasing him. She's chasing the feeling that only imbalance can produce. The feeling of not being in control. The feeling of losing herself. That's what she calls chemistry. And you can become that gravity again. Not by pretending to be mysterious, not by playing games, but by anchoring yourself so deeply in your purpose that she feels your stillness like a law of nature. When you speak less, she listens more. When you delay, her mind fills the silence with stories. When you withdraw, she starts to crave your return. This is not manipulation. This is rhythm. The rhythm of energy exchange between masculine and feminine poles. The rhythm that builds tension, releases it, and builds it again. That rhythm, not love, is what creates emotional addiction. She doesn't stay because you loved her right. She stays because your presence created imbalance and her body learned to call that imbalance home. You must unlearn the myth of mutual desire. There is no equality in attraction. There is only polarity. The one who sets the rhythm becomes the one who defines the experience. Desire is not a dialogue. It's a dance. And every dance has a lead. If you stop leading, the music dies. So keep watching because the next truth will show you how the first spark of this loop begins. The trigger that turns curiosity into craving and craving into emotional dependence. No addiction starts from peace. It begins where tension meets desire. Part 2, The Trigger. How emotional loops begin. Every addiction begins with rhythm. Not the steady rhythm of comfort, but the broken rhythm of uncertainty. The human mind doesn't crave peace. It craves anticipation. The first time she met you, she didn't fall for your face, your words, or your story. She fell for the space between your presence and your absence. The way you appeared and disappeared. Not too long, not too soon. That spacing became a pulse and her nervous system began to dance to it. It started innocently. You replied, then you didn't. You smiled, then withdrew. You touched, then turned away. Her body registered it as danger. Her mind translated it as desire. Every emotional addiction follows the same law. Intermittent reward, a pattern of pleasure and withdrawal, attention and silence, warmth and distance. The brain can't resist it. When reward becomes unpredictable, dopamine surges higher than before. That surge doesn't come from what she receives. It comes from not knowing when she'll receive it again. When you were steady, she felt safe. When you were inconsistent, she felt alive. And that right there is the trigger. She doesn't remember your compliments. She remembers your pauses. She remembers the night you looked at her and didn't explain what you were thinking. She remembers that silence because her mind couldn't fill it and her body couldn't rest inside it. Addiction is born in that silence. The body begins to chase the next dose, not of pleasure, but of certainty. She starts checking her phone. She replays your last conversation. She wonders what she said wrong. Each question releases a drop of dopamine, the chemistry of pursuit. The longer she doesn't know, the deeper her mind loops. The deeper it loops, the stronger you become in her imagination. It's not logic, it's biology. Her nervous system turns you into a puzzle. And the human mind is addicted to solving puzzles that move. If you text every morning, she forgets you by noon. If you text when she stops expecting it, you light up the reward system again. It's not the message, it's the timing. It's the unpredictability wrapped inside stability. You don't create craving by doing more. You create it by controlling rhythm. By giving enough to awaken hope and withholding enough to keep it breathing. That's what her body responds to. A loop that never quite closes. When you pull away, she feels a drop in her chemistry. Cortisol rises. Dopamine falls. She feels the ache of absence. And her mind starts searching for relief. When you reappear, even briefly, dopamine floods back in. She feels peace. She calls it love. But it's not love. It's neurochemical relief. That relief becomes the hook. The cycle repeats. Presence, absence, relief, presence, absence, relief. Until one day, she's no longer choosing you. Her nervous system is. You've become her loop. And once that loop forms, no logic, no advice, no warning from her friends can break it. Because the loop doesn't live in her mind. It lives in her body. Every woman who keeps coming back to the same man isn't chasing him. She's chasing the chemical rhythm he created. The unpredictable dose of emotion she can't predict but can't forget. You've heard her say, "I don't know why I keep thinking about him." She's telling the truth. She doesn't know. Because addiction hides behind logic. It pretends to be emotion, but it's simply repetition coded in biology. Her body has learned your pattern. Her pulse adjusts to your silence. Her mood depends on your attention. She's not remembering your kindness. She's remembering your inconsistency. That's what burned your imprint into her. The tragedy is that most men destroy this rhythm by trying to be perfect. They mistake predictability for security. They give constant reassurance, constant messages, constant presence. They think that's what love means. But predictability is the death of desire. When she knows exactly when you'll appear, exactly how you'll respond, exactly how you'll make her feel, the loop ends and so does her attraction. You become emotionally transparent. She can see through every move, and when she can predict you, she escapes you. The paradox is brutal. The moment you remove uncertainty, you remove emotion. Because emotion lives inside uncertainty. That's why good men often lose women to dangerous men. Not because they lack value, but because they lack rhythm. They are a steady hum in a world addicted to the thrill of unpredictability. The dangerous man doesn't chase. He times. He doesn't explain. He disappears. He doesn't give everything. He leaves space. And that space becomes her mirror. In that mirror, she sees her own chaos reflected back, and she mistakes that chaos for connection. It's not about cruelty, it's about polarity. The masculine creates space. The feminine fills it. When you create no space, you remove the dance. Be unpredictable, not in logic, but in rhythm, in the cadence of your attention, in the weight of your silence. Your silence should not be absence. It should be a signal. A signal that says, this moment matters more than noise. That is the kind of silence that makes her restless, that makes her imagination start to ache. She starts hearing your voice in her own thoughts. She starts answering questions you never asked. And that's when the loop tightens. She doesn't know it, but her mind is now pacing the cage you built. A cage made of timing, not walls. You can feel it when it happens. She starts testing your boundaries. She pulls away to see if you'll chase. She pokes the rhythm to check if it's still alive. She wants the loop to keep spinning. Don't react. Don't explain. Let the rhythm breathe. Let her wonder. Because wonder is where the addiction lives. Every trigger in her body, every glance, every silence, every delay is a note in a song her nervous system cannot stop replaying. You are not competing with other men. You are competing with the chemistry her own body creates in your absence. If you break the rhythm too soon, she forgets you. If you hold it too long, she breaks. Mastery is in the balance. The art of appearing just when her mind starts to slip into longing. Not before, not after. You are not there to please her emotions. You are there to conduct them. Don't try to be perfect. Be unpredictable in rhythm, not in reason. Because the moment she can predict you, she escapes you. Part 3. The dark pattern. The law of unequal exchange. Every emotional addiction hides one structure beneath it. The structure of unequal exchange. It is the law that governs every bond, every obsession, every longing that refuses to die. One gives more. one controls the rhythm. And the one who controls the rhythm controls the meaning. This is the dark pattern. It's not evil. It's not even conscious. It's simply how energy flows between two beings when one forgets his axis. Love is not a transaction of equal parts. It's a current. And in every current, one side holds voltage, the other consumes it. The man who forgets this law becomes the receiver, the passive conductor of her emotions. The man who understands it becomes the source. You can feel it when it happens. At first it seems mutual. Affection moving back and forth, attention shared, words exchanged. But slowly, almost imperceptibly, the balance tilts. You begin waiting for her response. You begin watching your phone. You begin shaping your tone to avoid her withdrawal. That is the moment the current reverses. It doesn't happen because she is cruel. It happens because you handed her the switch. The more you react, the less she needs to. The more you chase, the slower she moves. The more you explain, the less she listens. And soon, your entire emotional state revolves around her rhythm. You become the consumer of her attention and she becomes the source of your validation. That is not love. That is consumption. It's the same mechanism that keeps gamblers hooked on the machine that takes their money. Each pull of the lever might bring reward, might bring silence. The uncertainty is the fuel. And the more you invest, the harder it becomes to stop. This is the dark pattern. You think you are loving her, but you are feeding the current that drains you. Energy always flows toward the one who is least emotionally reactive. The one who stays still becomes the axis. The one who waits for a reaction becomes the orbit. When she tests you, it's not cruelty, it's instinct. Her system is searching for the pole of stability. When you break, she learns you are not it. When you stand firm, she feels the current reverse. And that reversal is what restores her respect. Every act of need, every, "Why haven't you replied?" every, "Do you still love me?" is an unconscious admission that you have lost your voltage. You've become the outlet, not the generator. A woman's desire attaches to power. Not the loud power of words, but the silent power of direction. When your emotions orbit hers, you surrender that direction. You become the passenger of her moods. And no woman truly desires to lead that kind of dance. She only leads when you disappear. The masculine was never meant to follow emotional gravity. It was meant to create it. But most men are trained from boyhood to believe love is earned through service, through giving, pleasing, adjusting. They don't understand that giving without weight is the fastest way to dissolve your value. Because when everything is given freely, it carries no tension, no polarity, no cost. And what has no cost cannot hold attention. The feminine mind measures worth not by quantity but by resistance. By what it must reach for, wait for, or strive to earn. When you remove that effort, you remove the spark. Unequal exchange doesn't destroy relationships. It defines them. The only question is who holds the asymmetry. When she dictates the emotional rhythm, you begin to lose density. You text first. You apologize first. You adapt first. And every time you do, you teach her nervous system that your energy follows hers. You stop being the frame. You become the reflection. You can't erase the dark pattern. It exists in every connection because energy always seeks direction. But you can reverse it. Reversal begins with stillness. It begins the moment you stop performing. When you stop needing her to respond, the current starts to change direction. She feels it instantly because the polarity shifts. Suddenly, her body is no longer being fed by your attention. It's being starved by your absence. And that starvation becomes curiosity. She begins to think about you again, not because you said anything, but because she feels something missing. The current that once flowed toward her now runs the other way. It's like electricity. When two wires touch, current flows only one way. The side with more charge directs the movement. If your emotional field weakens, she becomes the higher voltage. Her moods decide the day. Her silence dictates your actions. Her withdrawal commands your chase. That's when you become the consumer, feeding off her reactions like a dying flame feeds on air. But when you hold your charge, when you remain calm, deliberate, and measured, you become the power source. She feels the pull, but she can't control the direction. Her emotions begin to align with your rhythm. That's what dominance truly is. Not force, not manipulation, just the quiet certainty of a man who does not need to be fed by another's approval. That energy is irresistible because it offers what her chaos cannot create: order. And order is addictive. In that order, she feels smaller but safer. She resists it consciously but returns to it instinctively because the dark pattern doesn't disappear. It simply finds a new direction. When you are the one who defines the rhythm, she is the one who reacts. You don't need to control her behavior. You control the timing of your presence. And timing, not words, is what shapes attachment. Most men lose the game because they overcommunicate. They fill every silence, clarify every misunderstanding, confess every emotion. But communication without mystery is consumption. It reduces voltage. You must let silence do part of the talking. Silence is not absence. Silence is signal. Every pause, every delay, every retreat is a message to her nervous system. I move on my own time. That message is the essence of power because power is self-contained. It doesn't chase. It doesn't explain. It simply exists like gravity. And gravity doesn't speak. It pulls. The moment you understand this law, you begin to feel your axis return. You stop checking your phone. You stop asking for signs. You start noticing that your stillness changes her behavior more than your words ever could. That is when the current begins to hum again. This time with you as the source. The dark pattern cannot be erased, only reversed. The one who learns to generate energy within himself becomes the current others move around. So how do you reverse it? You become the current. Part 4: The Spiral of Dependency. Every addiction begins as a rhythm. But what begins as rhythm becomes a cage. The longer she stays in the cycle of lack, relief, loss, relief, the deeper her nervous system binds her existence to yours. She doesn't notice it at first. No one ever does. It begins with a thought, then a check, then a silence that feels too long. The silence becomes noise in her head, 1,000 questions, 1,000 fears. And before she understands what's happening, you are no longer a man. You are a chemical. Her body has learned your pattern. Your absence triggers stress. Your return releases dopamine. You have become the drug and the cure. She doesn't need you to talk or to explain. She needs you to exist. Because her nervous system has built its rhythm around your presence. This is not romance. This is biology. Addiction is not built on love. It is built on the relief that follows pain. And pain, the kind you cause without cruelty, is the binding agent. When she cannot predict your attention, her body enters survival mode. Cortisol rises. Adrenaline sharpens her senses. Every cell prepares to react. And when you finally return, her body releases dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, the chemicals of safety. She calls it love, but it's dependency written in molecules. This is the spiral. It turns quietly, invisibly, beautifully until it becomes impossible to leave. The more she suffers in your absence, the more relief she feels in your presence. The more relief she feels, the deeper her body associates you with safety. And the deeper that association becomes, the more terrifying the thought of losing you grows. So she clings, not because she chooses to, but because her biology demands it. Every woman trapped in this spiral will tell herself stories to survive it. She will say, "I love him." But what she really means is, "I can't stand how I feel without him." Her mind writes poetry about love. Her body keeps writing chemistry. Nietzsche once said, "Man clings to what hurts him because it makes him feel alive." It is true for her, too. The pain of missing you becomes proof that she's still connected. She would rather hurt with you than feel nothing without you. This is why she forgives your silence. Why she rationalizes your distance. Why she stays long after reason has left. Because in her biology, leaving you feels like death. You think she loves your presence, but what she really loves is the contrast. The chaos followed by calm, the uncertainty followed by reassurance. It's not what you give that binds her. It's what you withhold and the meaning her mind assigns to it. When she texts and you don't answer, her heart races. Her stomach tightens. Her brain releases cortisol. She tells herself she's angry. But underneath the anger is fear. Fear of loss. Fear of invisibility. Fear of falling into silence that never ends. And then you appear. A word, a call, a touch. Her body floods with relief. The tension dissolves. Her breath slows. Her chest opens. She feels peace again. Not because of love, but because her biology just rewarded her survival. The mind cannot distinguish between emotional starvation and physical danger. The body interprets both the same way. You have become the storm and the shelter. She lives for the next hit of calm. The deeper this spiral grows, the more she confuses dependency with devotion, the more she worships you, the more powerless she becomes. And the more powerless she becomes, the more power you have, even if you never ask for it. The spiral is not a choice. It's an equation. Lack multiplied by relief equals addiction. She doesn't crave you because you are perfect. She craves you because you are rhythm. Your presence ends her tension. Your absence defines her longing. You are both the wound and the medicine. This is why she dreams of you even when she hates you. Why she remembers your silence more than your words. Why she checks her phone in the dark, hoping to see your name. Not for conversation, but for reassurance that she still exists inside your gravity. Her identity begins to anchor around your reaction. If you withdraw, she collapses. If you return, she rebuilds. And that rise and fall becomes the only reality she can trust. You are not just in her life. You are her nervous system's clock. The tragedy is that she calls it love. She doesn't realize it's withdrawal. She doesn't know that the ache she feels when you're gone is the same ache an addict feels between doses. Withdrawal is not proof of connection. It's proof of dependency. She stays not because of the joy you bring, but because the pain of losing you feels unbearable. And so the cycle feeds itself. The more she fears your absence, the more she reinforces her bond to you. The more she reinforces it, the more she forgets who she was before you. She stops existing as a whole person. She becomes a reflection of your rhythm. Breathing when you appear, dying when you vanish. To understand this is to see how deep emotional control runs. You don't need to demand loyalty. You become the structure her body obeys. Her heart no longer asks, "Do I love him?" It asks, "Can I survive without him?" And when the answer feels like no, her loyalty becomes instinct. She calls it fate. She calls it destiny. But it's simply the pattern, the spiral of dependency closing tighter. You might think this is manipulation. It's not. It's awareness. The pattern exists whether you intend it or not. Most men live trapped inside it, needing her attention the same way she needs their reassurance. Both addicted, both reacting, neither in control. Mastery begins when you stop chasing her validation and start shaping her craving. When you stop needing her to respond and start understanding the chemistry that binds her. When you can hold absence with weight, not punishment, not coldness, but deliberate silence, you become the architect of her emotions, not their victim. Because control doesn't come from possession. It comes from absence with weight. She will feel that weight. She will fight it, resist it, curse it, but she will never forget it. That weight is the axis, and the axis is what turns the spiral in your favor. Part 5, The Master's Frame. Turning the pattern to your axis. The goal is not to destroy the pattern. It cannot be destroyed. It can only be reversed. Every emotion, every craving, every spiral you've seen until now, it all revolves around one truth. There will always be a center. If you are not it, she will be. And the one who becomes the center writes the law of the relationship. Mastery begins when you stop reacting to her rhythm and begin creating your own. When you stop feeding on her attention and start producing your own gravity, she doesn't become addicted to your affection. She becomes addicted to your stability and tension. When you stop trying to please her emotions and instead shape the field they move within, you stop being a participant. You become the axis. There are 3 principles that define the master's frame. 1. Predictable core, unpredictable edges. Your core must be unmoving. Your values, your direction, your center of gravity. That is what gives her nervous system something to calibrate against. But your edges, your actions, your timing, your energy must remain unpredictable. If she can map your rhythm, she controls the field. If she cannot, she orbits it. A man with a predictable core is dependable. A man with unpredictable edges is magnetic. She never knows exactly what you'll do, but she knows exactly who you are. That paradox is what locks her emotions into orbit. She needs to feel that she can trust your center, but never fully decode your pattern. Because once she can fully decode you, her body relaxes and the game ends. So you give stability but never full transparency. You reveal intention but never total predictability. You let her feel seen but never fully understood. Mystery keeps movement alive. Certainty keeps attachment safe. The balance of both keeps her addicted. 2. Controlled distance. Distance is not separation. It is oxygen. Every living bond needs it. Without distance, there is no tension. Without tension, there is no energy. Controlled distance means you decide when to close the space and when to let it stretch. You decide when to give warmth and when to retreat into silence. Your distance must not feel like punishment. It must feel like gravity. It must make her lean toward you, not away. That happens when your withdrawal is calm, not reactive. When your absence feels intentional, not emotional. When your silence feels alive, not cold, you walk away not to teach her a lesson, but to maintain your shape. Because if you never leave the field, she will stop feeling the pull. The frame collapses when you need her to fill it. It strengthens when she feels the emptiness and chooses to move toward it herself. Control doesn't come from chasing. It comes from managing the rhythm of closeness. Every great artist understands negative space. The part of the painting left blank so the eye has room to breathe. The same law applies here. The distance you create defines the shape of your presence. 3. Emotional silence. This is the rarest and the most powerful. Most men feel silence because they fear losing her attention. But silence, when it carries weight, is the most addictive form of communication. Words explain. Silence projects. When you speak, she listens. When you go silent, she imagines. And imagination is stronger than any truth. Her mind begins to fill the blanks with her own emotions. She replays your tone, your gestures, your eyes. She assigns meaning where none was given. That meaning becomes emotional investment. And that investment becomes attachment. The more she invests her own emotion into your silence, the deeper she binds herself to you. You are not manipulating her. You are allowing her to meet her own reflection within your stillness. That stillness is your greatest weapon. It is also your greatest test. Because silence without confidence collapses into emptiness. Silence with presence becomes gravity. Presence is not movement. It is the quiet awareness that everything in the room moves according to you. Not because you demand it, but because you no longer react. Reaction is surrender. Response is mastery. Silence is command. The master's frame doesn't chase emotion. It lets emotion orbit around it. When she cries, you don't fix it. When she tests, you don't defend. When she withdraws, you don't pursue. You stay still, not as stone, but as center. The stillness of the mountain does not need to explain itself to the storm. The storm always returns to the mountain because it needs resistance to know it exists. You are that resistance. You are the place where her chaos finds meaning. And when she feels that, when she realizes that her emotions no longer control the field, something shifts. She begins to calibrate herself to your rhythm. Her breathing slows when you speak slowly. Her tone softens when you remain unshaken. Her body aligns with your calm. Her chaos begins to orbit your gravity. That's when addiction becomes bond. When dependence transforms into devotion. She no longer craves your reassurance. She craves your stillness. Because your stillness gives her identity shape. She feels safe in chaos and lost in order. She doesn't stay because of love. She stays because your energy has become her reference point. You have replaced her emotional compass. You have become her law of motion. This is not manipulation. It's alignment. Every living system seeks a center. Every chaotic field searches for structure. When you embody that structure, you no longer compete for love. You define it. The master's frame is not about control. It's about gravity. Gravity doesn't force anything to move. It simply exists with enough density to bend everything around it. Your energy must be like that, dense, silent, unmoved. When she screams, you remain calm. When she doubts, you remain clear. When she pulls away, you remain whole. That constancy terrifies her at first. Then it soothes her. Then it enslaves her emotions completely because she realizes something profound. You are not reacting to her anymore. You are leading her without ever needing to move. That is when the pattern fully reverses. She no longer defines your worth by how much you give. She defines her world by how close she stands to your stillness. The addiction is now hers to manage. You have become the axis, the law that governs her emotional gravity. Don't chase her emotions. Become the pattern her emotions orbit around. Because mastery isn't about control, it's about gravity. She doesn't stay because you gave her love. She stays because your silence has weight. Your absence has meaning. And your presence becomes her equilibrium. Every man learns this truth too late. That love, as the world teaches it, is weak. It is full of noise, full of reaching, full of asking. But real connection is not built in noise. It is carved in stillness. When you gave her everything, she drifted. When you held your center, she returned. You mistook her distance for rejection, but it was only gravity seeking direction. The feminine doesn't rest in affection. She rests in order. She doesn't crave your heart. She craves your structure. The moment you stopped reacting, you became that structure. There is a silence that punishes and a silence that commands. The first is empty. The second is heavy. You learn to speak less, not because you had nothing to say, but because your silence now means something. Every pause, every delay, every withdrawal, each became a boundary carved in air. And boundaries are what teach desire its form. She doesn't want endless availability. She wants the feeling of approaching something she cannot fully reach. The mystery that shapes her emotions into reverence, the tension that keeps her awake in the dark, remembering the tone of your voice, the weight of your presence, the calm that her chaos could not shake. Your absence is no longer emptiness. It is the echo of meaning. When you leave, she doesn't feel abandoned. She feels recalibrated. She begins to count time in relation to your rhythm. Your silence becomes her metronome. Your distance becomes her mirror. She waits not for your words but for your gravity to return. Because when you enter a room, the air changes. Her pulse slows. Her mind quiets. You have become her equilibrium. The men before you tried to hold her through affection. They wanted to be loved. They gave everything. And in that giving, they disappeared. But you learned to hold her through tension. You gave nothing that wasn't earned. You became rare, and rarity is the foundation of value. Now she stays not because she feels safe but because she feels alive within your calm. Your presence carries the polarity her body has been trained to seek. Your silence gives her something to measure herself against. You are not her peace. You are her orientation. She doesn't stay because she understands you. She stays because she cannot decode you. Her emotions chase your meaning like planets chasing the sun they will never touch. She feels herself drawn inward into the rhythm of your pauses, the density of your restraint. This is what you never knew, that the feminine does not fall in love with kindness or romance or even passion. She falls in love with the man whose energy she cannot collapse. The one who doesn't bend when she breaks. The one who doesn't chase when she runs, the one who doesn't drown when she floods. You are no longer a lover in her story. You are the gravity that defines it. Your axis has become the invisible law that her emotions obey. She orbits it without realizing. She tests it without escaping. And in every return, she feels the same paradox. Freedom inside surrender. This is where emotional addiction becomes devotion. The spiral you once feared now moves around you. Her chaos finds rest not in your words but in the pressure of your silence. She confuses it for love, but it is something deeper, alignment. You have become the order she once sought in the world. And here lies the final truth. You cannot own her. You can only define the space she moves in. Control is an illusion. Gravity is eternal. She stays because the weight of your absence hurts more than the safety of her freedom. She stays because the world feels off balance when you are not at its center. She stays because your silence has become the pulse that tells her she still exists. The man who learns this never begs again. He never negotiates for love. He doesn't seduce through effort or convince through words. He simply stands still, certain, unbothered, and lets everything rearrange around his presence. That stillness is not arrogance. It is mastery. It is the moment you stop seeking to hold her and instead become the thing that holds her world. When she feels that, when she realizes your calm is not weakness but law, she stops testing. She stops comparing. She stops searching for what she already found. You have become her reference point, her compass, her truth, the mirror through which she finally sees herself. Because in your presence, she is not lost. She is defined, and in your absence she is undone. That is the end of the pattern. Not its destruction but its transformation. The chaos that once consumed you now revolves around you. The imbalance that once drained you now feeds your gravity. The woman who once left you now orbits a silence that she cannot name but cannot live without. You are not her addiction anymore. You are her equilibrium. So remember this. You don't win by chasing emotion. You win by mastering energy. You don't lead by control. You lead by gravity. You don't demand devotion. You become the axis devotion cannot escape. She doesn't stay because you gave her love. She stays because your silence has weight. Your absence has meaning and your presence becomes her equilibrium. Next time you will see deeper. Because the mirror doesn't just reflect her emotions. It bends them. It obeys you. The next law is waiting. Next, the mirror mechanism. How her emotions obey your reflection. You don't break the pattern. You become the one who writes it.